Well, you slept with him. That's exactly what my therapist said when I told her this exact same story. Like those four words erased everything else that had taken place before that point. Yeah, I slept with him. I consented to protected sex. What I didn't consent to was him removing the condom without telling me. This is how I became a mother at 19. My name is Shamiria Bailey, and this is No Sugar on the Rocks. When I graduated high school, my biggest accomplishment at that point, aside from my diploma, of course, was that I wasn't pregnant. I come from a family that bet on the demise of the youth, and I was the one that everybody knew for a fact would be pregnant by the time I graduated high school. And it did my body so good to prove them wrong. And so, graduation night, unlike any other night, I felt like my mother had released all expectations of who I was supposed to be or should be or how I should show up in the world. You know, much like a lot of other Black moms, 18 meant her job was over. I was officially grown and off to do whatever it was that I wanted to do. So, graduation night was supposed to be fun, right? No expectations, no barriers, no curfews, no, you better do this or you better do that. And so in my small town, we don't have big clubs and big lounges and things of that nature. I grew up in an area where bootleggers are really popular. A bootlegger is just a liquor house where somebody in the community is selling alcohol for a discounted price. You might get you a chicken sandwich or a fish sandwich too. And so that was my hangout in my high school years. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do any hard drugs, but the atmosphere was familiar, it was comfortable, it was family. And so graduation night, that's what I did. I went to the bootlegger, hung out with a couple of my sisters, and my biological father also met me there. And it was just supposed to be a night of fun. No expectations, like I said before, just fun, relaxing, partying, letting your hair down. I had completed what anybody in my community would have told me was the tip top most important thing of your life, which is graduating high school. And so I went out to party, not to drink, but to party. While I was there, I kept being hit on by this very tall, light-skinned man. And in my youth, I've always been a very outspoken and blunt person. And so the guy that kept trying to talk to me was just not my type. And I told him that he was just not my type. And he asked me what my type was, and I like dark-skinned men. And that's what I told him. And he was just like, well, my cousin dark-skinned. And I was like, yeah, your cousin can get it. Disclaimer, like I said, I've always been very honest. And so, yeah, that's how that happened. What was supposed to be a one-night stand just turned into something familiar. Shortly after meeting Ben, I go off to Fort Valley State University where I would attend college. When I got to Fort Valley State's orientation, I kid y'all not, I am pretty sure that lady got on stage and said, above all things, be careful, have safe sex. She was just like the STD and AIDS rate was like 80, and for everybody to be careful, cautious, and practice safe sex. And to me, I'm like, I ain't touching none of these people. I'm going to go and give this good coochie noochie to whoever is, back at home. And that was Ben. That was the person I had intercourse with recently. And so, yeah, that was going to be my sex partner. Disclaimer, I had something like a boyfriend, I guess you would say. I don't know how to explain my ideology around relationships. I honestly was just that young girl who I was very unorthodox and I didn't need the traditional relationship model. And so the man that I loved dearly at the time had went off to jail my senior year in high school. I was in high school, maybe 17. He had to be, I guess, 25, 26, 27, something like that. But he went to jail. And the only thing that he wanted from me was to not get pregnant. And he was just like, have fun. You're young, see the world. Just don't get pregnant. And so I had a boyfriend, but, whatever. And so that's what I did. College was not promising for a sex life. And so I felt like it was smarter to just hold my urges for when I would visit home on the weekends. And that worked out for me. I'd come home on Friday night. I'd hang out with my friends. We'd go to the club. Saturday night, I'd hang out with my family, go to the club. I'd get dropped off at his house Saturday night. We'd do our thing. Sunday morning, he'd take me home and I'd be off to school. This was a casual encounter, a very, very, very casual encounter. We did not text. We did not date. We did not plan our lives together. As far as I was concerned, we were literally just sexually active. That's it. I got to school. I can't tell y'all the month I got to college. I graduated high school in May. So maybe July, I get to college. And like I said, on the initial basis, I'm coming back and forth and I'm hanging out with Ben. I hang out with him on Saturday night. He takes me home Sunday morning. I go back to school. That works for a little while. I eventually ended up meeting a football coach at Fort Valley State University, who I actually will not name. And we started dating. And I liked him. He was an ideal person to date because I went to college to get away, but I didn't go to college with books and with computers. I didn't go to college with a plan, with resources, with assistance, with help. I didn't have those things. So I felt like I was just there. So dating someone older, more established, and this particular person didn't live on the college campus. He lived, out in the community. So I just started to see myself as a regular civilian. Working out in the community, probably gonna have to make some money. School probably ain't gonna work out. And that was cool. And we hung out. Fast forward a little bit more, I come home for Thanksgiving break like normal. I'm hanging out with my older sister and her friend. And her friend thinks that she's pregnant and she's like, I want to take a pregnancy test, but I'm afraid to take it by myself. And so I'm like, girl, what? And my sister's like, I ain't taking no pregnancy test with you. That's how you jinx yourself. And I'm like, jinx, schminks. Girl, you either pregnant or you ain't. Okay, I'll take the pregnancy test. And I did. She takes the pregnancy test first. Boom, she's pregnant. She already suspected it, so it's not a big thing. She already has a baby. Her parents, I guess, are accustomed to this kind of news. It's not a big deal for her. I go pee in a cup and my older sister is like, let me do it, let me do it. So she does. She drops the first droplets of pee. I'm parlaying around, not thinking anything of anything until she looks at me and says, Shay, what does it mean when it has 2 lines? And I'm like, it means we need to do another one. Like, girl. And so we did like 4 more and positive and pregnant and 2 lines. It was very, very positive. And I am sure that I experienced every emotion in a matter of 60 seconds. Again, before this moment, my claim to fame was just that I graduated high school and I was not a mom. I didn't know how to feel about being in college and a mom. Like, is this okay? Is this normal? And so we end up telling my mother over the phone on our way home, just so that I did not have to digest her initial reaction. You got to know my mama to know. Okay. And so by the time I make it to her, she was not as pissed as I thought she would be, honestly. But she had so many questions. Initially, I told her that, I don't know what's going on. And I say that because I'm shocked, I guess, right? But I have a boyfriend and he's the football coach at the school, like a legitimate boyfriend. And so I tell her about him and she's like, okay. I reach out to him and I let him know what's going on. I let him know I got a positive pregnancy test and he's ecstatic. He's so happy. He's from Florida initially. And so he's excited to move me and this baby to Florida and to start his own family. And like he gonna leave the school and all these different things. And he doesn't think twice. So at least I did something right, right? Like I'm pregnant and the dad is excited and he's accepting me and the child. And so me and my mama can breathe a little bit, right? And so that's what we are. I got to go back and message Ben and let him know that he won't be seeing me anymore. Now, granted, these last few months, he hadn't seen me much anyways, but we could have played it off like it's because I just hadn't been home. But I hadn't been home because I had a boyfriend, okay? And so now not only do I have a boyfriend, but I'm pregnant too. So I'm thinking, well, let's just catch him up all the way. And so I sent him a text like, hey, I am in town, but I do want to just let you know I'm pregnant. So we just might not be hanging out no more, That's a dub. And so he texts back and he's like, okay, like, can I pull up on you? Can we talk? And so, yeah, sure. He pulls up outside of my mama's house and I go outside to sit and talk to him in a car. I don't feel anything about speaking with him because we don't date. Yes, we have had casual sexual encounters, but we're not dating. Like, you're not my man, I'm not your girl. We don't keep up with one another. So I'm thinking this is really just a life update for you. Like this is just off GP. I'm doing you a solid here. So I get in the car and I really remember this conversation like it was yesterday. I get in the car and he like, what's up? And I'm like, what's up? Not shit. I'm chilling. And he like, what you mean not shit? You just said that your belly about to get big. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's happening. I'm pregnant. And he kind of gets quieter. His energy is quieter. And then he's like, well, do you know who the daddy is? I'm offended, but I answer because, like, yeah, I do actually. And he's like, who is it? And so I tell him about the football coach that I had been dating that past 3, 4 months. And he gets silent again. And this time his energy is not as silent as his mouth is. And he starts yelling and like punching the steering wheel. And he relays to me, he says to me that the last few times that we had sex, I was taking the condoms off. I had caught feelings for you and I wanted you to have my baby. And initially I'm there and I start like this light chuckle. And it's due to nervousness. I'm shocked really. Because what? I don't even believe what I'm hearing and I'm waiting on him to say psych, even though this is a weird game to play. But then he's like, nah, seriously, like I put that on my kids. Mind you, he already had like 3 kids before this point. It's like I put that on my kids. I put that on my sister's grave. And so I'm realizing that he's dead serious. And so now I go from a laughter to eyes as big as saucers, and I'm just literally shocked. And the last thing that he says to me before he changes my world again is, you know, you already said it's that other nigga, baby, so you can't put it on me. It ain't got nothing to do with me now. And if this was a cartoon, smoke would have came out of my ears and my head would have literally exploded. Like, this gotta be the Twilight Zone. So that conversation ends right there. I basically say, okay. And I get out of the car. And now I have so much more to process and think about. And like, where do we go from here? Right? I remember telling my mom this exact conversation that I'm having with this man. And my mama was like, girl, ain't nobody told you no shit like that. And I'm like, I promise you I couldn't make this up. And she would not believe it unless he told her this to her face. And she was just like, I'm not believing this kind of information secondhand. This man would have to come tell me this to my face. And he did. He came and sat at my kitchen table with me and my mother. And she looked him in his face and said, you did this intentionally? And he said, yeah. She said, fool, do you know what intentional means? He said, yeah. And if it's mine, we gonna get married. Yeah, that's that, right? I immediately tell my boyfriend back at school, the football coach, I immediately listen, hey, before me and you started dating, before we were together, I was dealing with this person, I just found out I'm pregnant. He's saying that it's his baby and that he did this to me on purpose. And my boyfriend is like, girl, damn him. This is my baby. This is my relationship. This is my family. We gonna ignore him. We gonna ignore him. We're gonna move right on past this. And honey, no, we ain't. Like, what? Oh, no, we are not. So I'm having to assure him that a DNA test is absolutely the most imperative thing that we could do in a situation like this. And he's damn near begging me not to do one. I'm pregnant. I've told him, he's happy. So now we have to go to the doctor's office. So when they get us set up in the room, initially they set up a vaginal ultrasound. And if you know anything about childbirth at all, you know that the vaginal ultrasound is used to detect early pregnancy. I'm coming in, I'm telling them that I just got a pregnancy test, and they're asking me, about the details of when was my last cycle and when was the last time I had sex and all of these different things. And true story, I had been on birth control since I was 7th grade. Not because I was sexually active in 7th grade, because I did not lose my virginity until I was 11th grade in high school. But I had an older sister that was 2 years my senior. And so when she entered high school in 9th grade, my mother automatically put her on birth control because she always said she couldn't control when we did it, but she could control us having a child when we did it. And so I had been on birth control all this time. And so I hadn't had a period. I didn't have a cycle to track, so I couldn't tell them a suspected conception date. I had no clue. So they hooked me up to this vaginal ultrasound, and I remember her inserting it and like this gasp. And the nurse is like, oh my goodness, there's a whole baby in here. This is a butt. And she explained that the vaginal ultrasound was supposed to detect early pregnancy, maybe an embryo, but that I had an entire baby already inside of my womb and there was extremities and body parts already present. I mean, things are happening so fast. I don't know what to think, how to feel, what to say, anything. I'm laying there. And she's like, well, I'll be right back. You can put your pants back on. We're going to have to do a tummy ultrasound. And we did. And as she's doing the tummy ultrasound, she's like, well, I can tell you what you're having. Remember, this is my very first doctor's appointment. My mother's beside me. She's like, you better not say no damn girl. And the nurse is like, congratulations, grandma. It's a boy. And my life literally changed forever at that very moment. We are measuring this baby now because the baby is full size. So now they can measure the baby's legs and the baby's, the size of the baby's arm and the baby's head and all these different things to get an estimate size of this baby. Now we have a conception date based off of the baby's size. Now I'm literally on Instagram, okay? Dating back the last picture, the last time I was with Ben. I'm not newly pregnant. I'm very, very pregnant. So pregnant that they can tell me the sex of my baby. And so as I'm sitting there and I'm recounting where I've been, my boyfriend back at school is out. I just met him. I'm 5.5 months pregnant. So I've been pregnant the whole time we've been together. And yeah, so now I'm sure. And so I'm texting him like, hey, I know you said this ain't got nothing to do with you no more. And I know you said that, we just gonna pin it on this other guy, but the conceptions they say it's your baby. What we gonna do? And you know what he did? From that day forward, he went and told anybody with ears that I was making this entire thing up, that he was not dealing with me like this, and that this was not his child. And I was so shocked and surprised by his audacity that I really did not mind telling people exactly how the hell I got pregnant. I did not mind telling people that, listen, had this man not told me that he artificially inseminated me, I would not have ever suggested this man is my baby's father. Me and this man had never had unprotected sex, ever. 100% of our intimacy was protected. And so the news of him removing contraceptives was mind boggling to me. The fact that he could take such a malice act and then flip the script and make himself a victim was even more astonishing than inseminating me to begin with. And I was mortified, not because the baby daddy wasn't interested or because I was now pregnant and alone, but because I didn't choose this for myself. I did not pick this man as my child's father. Yes, I had consented, protected sex, but I did not choose this man as my child's father. I did not choose to be a mother at all, actually. Right? But nobody else saw it that way. Nobody else saw it that way. And so what do? You go through with your pregnancy. I had my baby, right? And my boyfriend still comes all the way from Fort Valley State University to my mama's house, which is about 2 hours, to do an at-home DNA test. And he wasn't the dad. And my child's father literally dodged a DNA test until my son was more than 6 months old before I went to the child support office to demand a DNA test. And he was 99.9% the father of this child. And I don't tell this story to shame him or to victimize myself. I tell the story because so often society writes young motherhood like these poor decisions and this reckless behavior that all falls on this promiscuous woman. This is not to take away from the responsibility that I have as a woman, as a young woman, or my promiscuity for that matter. This is more so about not being shamed into silence and telling the stories that people, society try to rewrite. Yes, sometimes we make poor decisions. More times than not, as young people, we're making poor decisions, but it's usually more than one person at fault. As a young woman being trained and taught to graduate and don't get pregnant, and do not become a baby mama and wear a condom, I felt completely unprepared for the thought that there could be someone out there that would remove that contraceptive. That there are men that will make a final decision that you will have to live with for the rest of your life. That there are people that will make permanent decisions based off of a temporary bliss. And that could potentially all fall in your lap. I wasn't prepared for that. I was simply trying not to get pregnant in high school. I'm not telling you this story so you pity me. I'm telling you this story so at least you know that not all of us simply chose wrong. Some of us were chosen by predators, put in situations that we didn't even know were possible. Don't be shamed into silence. That's exactly how they would have it. Next episode, I'll tell you about the man that I met just 4 weeks after giving birth, the one that I thought was saving me. My name is Shamiria Bailey, and this is No Sugar on the Rocks.